see you there. Welcome to the best of 1992 for the Interjections podcast, the Undiscovered decade. This is our year-end wrap-up of our favorite films of the year. We do our top 5. I've mentioned before, in the past 2 years, we do something called a Borda count, which allows us each individually to represent our top 5, and then I compile them together, and each top film gets 5 points, and so forth down. And it's going to be interesting this year. Before I get into it, I wanted to mention, I have a Christmas gift for us, sort of more for me, editing everything. It's been my desire to have us on all these different platforms, like Podbean or Stitcher or everything else, just by putting it into the RSS. Apparently this whole time, they've been on everything. I had been meaning to look into putting them on them individually, but I discovered a way that you can link straight to all of them. And through that, I clicked and saw every episode already there. So not just on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts anymore, but literally anywhere you listen to us.
All right.
So you could have been on Podbean this whole time and I would have had no idea.
Cool.
So, as you can see, we're on YouTube, and I think that's the thing we've focused on the most. So
Yeah.
we like getting here together for the year-end podcast. And
First time we see each other not over Zoom.
right.
Yeah.
So obviously that started as part of the pandemic, but it's nice to have a recap in person. I think it ended up being a good format. So it's actually kind of funny this year. For 1990 and 1991, it was fairly easy to compile our votes because all of us had the same film for number 1 on all 4 of our lists. But this year, we had 17 different films between us and only 3 repeats. And that meant they were a little too low to even make the list. Because if you give the number 1 film on all of our lists 5 points, they're the top. So you all kind of know what's on the list already, so it's not as much of a surprise. But there's a little bit of a thing that I did because of the repeats. So we technically have 6 films all tied at 5 points. And just because some of our second place films got 4 points, the honorable mentions include Alien 3. We had... What were the other ones? I had it on a list. Aladdin was my number 2. And then Dracula was your number 2. So that was one of our films that we focused on. So
we did give out a lot of A's this year, though.
Yeah, we all liked them, but it was all kind of discovery for us.
We're all very...
I mean, I remember, like, last year, like, we did have a lot of films that, like, that we did recover was on our, like, list.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, I was consciously avoiding that when I was putting in my movies. It's like, cause like, you know, like, we already discussed them, so, like,
sure,
I'll pick movies that I, like, know that I liked.
Nostalgia
That's
plays
fine.
a factor
Yeah,
in all
so-
this.
yeah,
too.
nostalgia too.
You're supposed to pick stuff that you
So.
actually like. And I think as we arrive to where we're 5, 6, 7, 8, we're starting to get films that we'd already seen back then, and they're going to be nostalgia-driven and not the ones we're discovering only in the past 12 months. So that's probably what's going to happen from now on. We're going to have films that just aren't on there. Like next year, my favorite film, Jurassic Park, isn't one we're technically going to cover. So I already know that's my number 1, but what are we going to do? You can't really help that.
Yeah.
So we talked about those 12 films in their individual episodes.
Time marches on and waits for no
So
man.
Without further ado, and since we're already in the theme of Christmas, I'll start out with our number 6 film. I have a particular order for what I did, even though we all tied. I went with my number 1 film first, The Muppet Christmas Carol, which should come as no surprise.
Of course.
It's my favorite Christmas film. It just happens to be the film I saw on Christmas in 1992. There's nothing much more to say that we didn't really in the last episode, because we praised Michael Caine, and we talked about the intricacies of adapting A Christmas Carol for a modern audience.
You know what we didn't talk about is the context in which this came out for the Muppets, because they had been dormant for a while.
There's a good way. Yeah.
So, was Muppet Treasure Island before this?
No, that's 96.
Okay, so they go through ebbs and flows. There'll be like a decade gap in between Muppet properties, and then they'll be revived.
Well, the biggest thing in this that I thought you were going to bring up, Jim Henson had died the previous year.
Okay.
So Brian Henson took over and had guided them towards a different avenue, and they thought, let's adapt something. Obviously, that sort of works for Disney. They were acquired by Disney in '92 once Jim had died.
Right.
And so they started making the Muppet Vision 3D down at the park in Florida. They started maybe trying to do a new show. They eventually would bring out the Muppet Show in, I think, 95, 96. I forget exactly what year, but in the 90s. And so it was a new revival, and they added a couple new characters. They had, as you see in the Muppet Christmas Carol, Gonzo's joined by Rizzo, the rat character they were trying to push as one of the main new Muppets. But it works because they're both sort of Dickens, and it guides that film in a way that I don't know if Gonzo as one of the characters would have worked as well. He's perfect as Cratchit, or not Cratchit, as Dickens. Like, and having a narrator lead us lends them a way to adapt the novel without being too stuffy, you know.
Right.
Because the way that he's fascinated by the stuff that goes on, it helps us be fascinated too. And so Michael Caine handles the stuffiness because he's taking it seriously. So I think the two-handedness of Gonzo and Michael Caine make that movie perfect. So, and I think, to your point, it was an ebb and flow, and this was sort of naturally going to flow up, but I think this was a perfect choice.
There's an upturn with this, and then around the time of like Muppets in Space, they go back into the vault.
They basically did two adaptations and didn't know where to go from there.
Right.
So I wonder what they could have done differently if they'd adapted something else.
Like each generation has their own Muppets. A series of Muppet movies, TV shows, stuff like that. Like our parents grew up on the original Muppet movie
from
and the
79.
TV show.
Yeah.
Then we grew up on stuff like this, and now the next generation has the one that was kind of like The Office.
In 2011 that Jason Segel was... he was in love with him.
I remember when I was a kid, the Muppet Show was still going.
There was Muppets Tonight.
It was happening again.
Muppets
Tonight is
Muppet
when
Babies was around.
Yeah, because I do remember there was a skit that they made fun of Independence Day when that came out, because they had the alien from Independence Day as a Muppet.
Definitely out by 96.
So, definitely watch the repeats of the Muppet Show, and then
Muppet Babies,
Muppet Tonight. So,
sorry,
they were definitely still going hard.
They had always wanted to, and I don't know if this is Brian Henson or someone else specifically, but Dave Goelz certainly, who played Gonzo, was always hoping to find the origins of Gonzo. They'd always just kind of like laughed it off, like, what are you anyway?
Right.
And he just never really knew. It sort of was a misfire, but the actual discovery of him being an alien is an interesting concept.
Didn't they lightly hint at that in the Muppet Babies cartoon?
They do in the Muppet movie.
Oh.
And so...
vaguely remember that I could just be inserting...
They just don't go enough into it, and I think by going too far into it, it was kind of boring. Leave him a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah, they don't normally do origin stories for any of the characters.
Right. Yeah, and Muppet Movie worked because they just pick people up along the way. Like, they find Rolf in the bar.
Yeah.
It's not like he's a dog that was abandoned. You know, you don't need any backstory.
Nobody needs a tragic backstory.
Right.
He's probably just a dog that just went into the world, and everybody except
right.
It's
just like
he's
Kermit
there.
was in a swamp,
He's just playing in a bar.
Yeah.
We don't need it to be like, Kermit's Disney related to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something by some sort of...
Yeah. I mean, Fozzie kind of
that would be an
naturally has...
interesting crossover.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Fozzie kind of has an interesting origin story. I mean, it's kind of easy to make him just a stand-up comedian that's failed.
Right.
It's his whole thing. So, But speaking of which, he's perfect as Fezziwig. The name made in the 1800s was perfect for Fozzie.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was ever Jim's intention.
I feel like there was probably a little bit of inspiration there.
Yeah.
Like one little nugget that stuck in the back of his brain.
Yeah.
Because, Fezziwig's always this jovial character.
I think it's just perfect synergy.
Yeah.
It's a coincidence.
The way they cast the Muppets in those particular roles, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kermit obviously has to be Cratchit, and then you have Miss Piggy as Mrs. Cratchit.
And then Statler and Waldorf as
Marley.
Jacob and Robert Marley.
Yep. Sam Eagle is perfect as the teacher. Yes. He's the business.
Yeah. It's the American one.
Yeah. They also were smart to make a past, a present, and a future. So you don't have a Muppet is specifically the past, like Rolf or Miss Piggy. So they're unique to this adaptation.
Yeah.
My favorite part is when Present just can't remember anything because time is going so fast, his memory's just gone. So, and he gets slowly gray as you notice, and they don't point it out until suddenly he's white. So it's really cool that he's got a 24-hour lifespan. Well,
perfect for this time of year.
Time.
Yeah. It's Christmas time.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my number one film and number 6. So we're going to shift over to Corey and his number one film, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, perfect. So David Mamet was pretty much a playwright around this time. So this is one of the first screenplays he got produced. And talk about an ensemble cast. Like everybody in the cast, everybody points out like the Alec Baldwin scene.
Yeah, which is made for the film, right?
Yeah, his. I don't think that role was in the original play. So he comes in and basically corrals all the salesmen together, and it's a speech that's been parodied, copied, done in other movies. But I'm a big fan of like dialogue. And if you're a fan of dialogue, these Mamet movies are up there with like Sorkin and stuff like that, or like Pinter plays. Everything he writes is literate, but it's also tinged with vulgarity.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow he makes that into like a very eloquent prose at the same time. And it's got one of my favorite performances ever in the movie, which is Jack Lemmon. I remember Jack Lemmon giving interviews after the movie. He was like, I read the character on paper and I tried to make him as Weasley as possible so the audience wouldn't like him. But because it's Jack Lemmon, he's so inherently lovable, you can't hate him. Even at the end, you're just like, I hope he gets away with this.
Yeah.
It's funny because the subject matter doesn't sound interesting at all.
Yeah.
It's about a bunch of guys selling real estate, which on paper sounds like it's going to be very boring and dreary.
Try.
Yeah. But it's weird knowing how the original cast was kind of put aside for some of the cinematic counterparts. Like the Al Pacino role was originally Joe Mantegna, who's worked with David Mamet quite a few times. So you can see like this getting a revival every couple of years on Broadway. It's one of those properties that has like an instant renewal about it.
Yeah.
But I love everything about it.
A little different than Muppet Christmas Carol. So we took a
yeah.
real nosedive into drama.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Muppet Christmas Carol's for the whole family. This is more for adults.
Yeah. This is, it's a good film. Had you guys seen it? I don't remember what we said in October.
What, Glengarry?
Yeah.
Had you seen the play?
I've never seen it.
I had seen the play. I had not seen the film other than the one scene that everybody quotes.
Right,
Right, exactly.
Always be closing.
That would have been Sam Eagle if they did a Muppet Christmas in Glengarry.
Sure.
Yep.
Is Kermit Jack Lemmon?
Yeah.
Who would Al Pacino be? Gonzo? I guess.
You ever take a
We're
shit?
just gonna
That makes me
recast
feel like
No,
you slept for a
Gonzo's
year.
got to be the Ed Harris character, just in the background, always
Yes.
like. bobbing.
Kermit's definitely got to be Jack Lemmon.
That's what I mean.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, that's a pretty good choice for number 1 for you. For number 4, also obviously tied with the other ones, we have The Last of the Mohicans, which is your number 1.
Yeah.
So, and of course we sort
be
of
the
covered
last,
this.
but
Yeah,
it's
we
number one
went
for Jimmy.
a bit at length, and like what? It's like 3-4 episodes ago.
Yeah, it was September.
Yeah, September. Yeah, no, no, I just love the crap out of that movie, and like I said before, like I'll watch it like at least twice a year. It's a really good movie to just like get them dad vibe on.
Yeah, that's your dad
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, that's my dad
Yeah.
movie, and I saw that like when I was like middle school,
There's
high
always
school.
one.
So like that was the one thing that I was like, I really dig that movie.
Very intense for a dad movie, though.
Yeah, and like
It's got war.
and it's like it's a historical drama.
Yeah.
And it's a war film, and like the war bits
More
about
violent than you would
the
think.
the war bits is like in the background. It's like not even like in like the focus of the movie, but like it drives the story because like
haunting.
it's part of the history, and it's just a fun little mini epic before the epic of America.
I do
Which
like.
we'll talk
no,
about
it-
trends.
I do like that it takes place before America.
Yeah.
You don't get enough historical stuff about
Yeah.
America before it's formed. So the fact that the writer of the original novel was alive during that time, right? Or a little after. So
A little- something like that.
His recent history is 1700s. So that's what you want to write about. So it's just I'm glad that we have some stuff to adapt.
And it's
to.
always interesting to see not only like this, like just the dynamics of like you got the American colonists, the French are right there, and like the British Empire, and like the American colonists are like, we're part of you, but we're not. So like, why are you being dicks? Like, what the hell? Like, you're telling us to like fight for you, and you're saying you're doing this for us, and we're just like, We want to live
Yeah.
peaceably. It's just like, what the hell? Just
It's
Interesting
a
to
cool
point out that
era.
nowadays.
And then like there's also the dynamic of like, you know, the Native Americans who were
Right.
already there, and like the last of the Mohicans, like Hawkeye's like adoptive father is like, I'm the last of my people. You're my legacy now.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that they would cast Daniel Day-Lewis in that nowadays?
Probably not. Well, no, because he is a white man that's adopted by the
Exactly.
Americans,
That's why I
right?
think
So,
they could get away with it still.
Yeah, I mean that's the story that James Fenimore
Because it's
Cooper
not
came
a
up
white.
with,
It's
so-
not a white savior movie.
Well, the book probably is, right?
No,
Cooper probably didn't care about white savior.
Okay,
comics.
the thing is like, who is he saving? He's saving like he's
Yeah.
not saving his father's people. They're gone.
They don't save
it's
anyway.
It's too
Exactly.
late. Like,
Yeah.
so where's the white savior?
Right.
Like he's just he himself is trying to survive
I'm saying
during
this
a
movie
time of war,
eschews all that.
and like he's basically like helping two lost white girls essentially.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's a movie that promotes male masculinity.
Two good girls in a bad situation.
Yeah, two good.
I mean, looking at this specific film and this one that they adapted of all Cooper's novels about Hawkeye,
Yeah.
it's hard to underestimate the fact that it's more about Hawkeye in the series, and you're thinking The Last Mohicans is him, so you're kind of thrown off by the title.
Right.
So
And
I
then,
think if you
like
adapt
Last
a
Samurai
series,
kind of
Yeah,
white
that's kind of
savior
like the
movie.
Last Samurai.
if
type
we ever
thing.
did a Hawkeye series, you'd have other stories because you're following him
Sure.
that aren't like that he's appropriating Native American culture.
Yeah,
Right,
also
yeah.
another,
Technically.
and another thing, like one of the lead villain,
I forget his name.
I always want to say
Yeah.
Mugwump?
not.
Mugwump.
Oh my god! Yeah, every time I just like no, it's like Mogwai or something.
No, Mogwai is the thing.
It's
you
the-
know.
yeah, I
that's
know
what
it's the band,
this
but like I
movie is.
think that when I try to think of his name,
When you said it in the episode, you said it right.
yeah, I did.
So-
Just I don't know.
Don't
why.
get over with
That's
that.
right.
Okay,
Because he had a screen in front of him.
all right, but like he's a villain that you can relate to, that you like. You understand that like he's got this like he got screwed over royally by just basically everyone, and he just wants to wipe out the well, he just wants to wipe out specifically a general that of the British Army and his lineage. He wants to like that's his end game. That's it.
Yeah.
Like the whole war is just his avenue of accomplishing these goals. Mm-hmm. So like he's a villain that you're like, yeah, no, you kind of root for, but like he's kind of
It's kind of like these new Marvel anti-heroes
Yeah.
that they're making.
So he's the original
You root for
Marvel
the Grey
anti-hero.
Line. Yeah.
Except
so yeah.
he does die the villain's death
True.
at the hands of the
But
last
so do a lot of
Mohican,
Marvel-
the father.
Yeah.
So like really the hero of the story, Hawkeye, like he doesn't get the heroic victory.
No. Well, that's the point.
So that's the
about
other
it.
thing. Like he's the hero. Like he's our hero that we're following,
Right.
or the main character, I should say. He's not the hero. because, like,
Protagonist.
they're the protagonist, because like there's no real hero in it,
Right.
really.
Well, that's the point because you're supposed to read the series of novels. So, yeah, good choice.
Good choice. I love that.
Number 3 is going to be Jeff's number 1 film of the year, which actually is the only one we covered in the podcast. Death Becomes Her.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
Did not expect this.
Yeah, no.
yeah,
'cause,
neither did I.
I'm going to be honest. This was the first... I hadn't seen the film until we watched it for the podcast. And I'm a fan of... It was Zemeckis did that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so... Huge
Makes
fan
sense.
of Zemeckis. Didn't know... Yeah, but
Around the
I
time he
didn't
was
even
doing
know that
Tales
was
from
like...
the Crypt.
Right, exactly. So, like, I'm finding out that one of my favorite directors actually, like, for one movie, actually made most of the coolest things from the 90s. But I was fascinated with it because, like, I like dark comedies and the fact that it, taking the specific approach to the whole immortality plot line and just, like, seeing what would happen if these two... entitled women who have been locked in this rivalry for their entire lives had as long as they wanted to, but with like the minor side effect of, yeah, you'll never die, but there's, all of the side effects stemming from that. And the effects obviously were great. Bruce Willis was incredible. Like, this is one of my favorite right,
Yeah,
exactly.
My favorite
Bruce
performances
Willis.
by him.
Yeah, he had such good comedic
'Cause
chops
you're
that
so-
were not
yeah, 'cause-
always put up to...
I was gonna say, because after Moonlighting, he basically just did action movies after that.
Well,
so.
it's Die Hard effect.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you start losing your hair. You start doing like more tough guy
He's got a
movies.
good
Oh,
swing and
so I gotta
mustache
be
and
doing
that.
more
There
tough
you
guy
go.
movies.
Jimmy's
gotta
to
do
stay
more
tough
alive.
guy movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and it was just like there were so many good movies from this year that I was going through the list. I'm like, I don't know how to narrow this down to 5 of them.
I know.
And I'm like, I know that we had, you know, there was some reverence to this one,
Yeah.
going into it. So
I actually wanted to ask. I want you to say more about it, but I was going to ask because that made me think of it. Death Becomes Her is obviously your favorite that we covered. I know that it was my 3rd favorite just because I made the whole list of everything I've seen in 92.
yeah.
But my favorite was Thunderheart. Can you guys think off the top of your head what might be? Technically, Last of the Mohicans might count.
What's the favorite one of the ones
of
we
the
covered?
12 we covered, yeah.
I mean, it's Dracula.
Sure. Yeah, that was in your 5, so... I don't think you had any in your top 5. And my top... Thunderheart was technically my 10th favorite film of the year. There were so many good movies.
Incidentally, of the ones we covered, I think I like Distinguished Gentlemen.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, then that should be
Really
number
good.
1.
It should be. Listen, I don't understand the assignment half the time. I
Okay.
just set up the equipment.
You actually helped make everything make sense for the board account, so it's okay.
My favorite that we didn't cover, though, was Fern Gully.
Well,
Yeah, that's
good way to
on my-
segue.
yeah.
I wanted to talk more about Death Becomes Her, but we did enough in our episode. Ferngully is actually our number 2. So, this is the reason. It was number 2 in yours and number 5 in Jimmy's, which gives it 4 and 1 points, which makes it tie with these other ones. So my thinking was that because they were repeats, I'd rather talk about those. And before we do, I wanted to mention one other honorable mention. We had Batman Returns in 2 of them, but because they were in 4th and 5th place, they only got like 3 points. So the way that this works, they're technically lower than our 2nd place movies even. So obviously we all like Batman Returns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was my
Might be my
6th
favorite Batman movie.
Yeah. So it's easy. We talked enough about it back in June when it came out. So it is worthwhile, but it's the only other one that repeated. So Batman Returns and Ferngully, which if you want to talk a little bit about that, and you had it on your list as well.
Oh, yeah, no.
So
I mean, just, you know, I remember it giving me nightmares as a child, but like those good nightmares that you want to go, well, you still want to watch the movie after the fact, and even though, you know, Tim Curry as a sludge monster just terrified you.
I think 90% of me liking Ferngully is probably because of the Pavlov effect. Because, like, in science class, or, like, even through elementary school, for whatever reason, like, that was the movie that got played the most for class.
sure.
So, like, you got, like, a couple hours, or a couple days, because, like, 45-minute classes, like, it would get broken up.
Probably half.
Yeah.
It's just
So, like, if, like, the science teacher was out sick, substitute came in, Ferngully. Or,
science teacher talk about the fairies.
yeah, or like, if you're
Yeah.
taking an environmental science class in high school, Ferngully.
I never got
Wait,
this in
really?
school.
Yeah.
I was in your environmental science class. We didn't.
Okay, I've heard, okay.
No,
Maybe-
I think
maybe-
you might. No.
realize
You're
it's
not.
Eric. No.
Maybe not our class, but I've heard other kids in other classes, they brought it up. So I'm thinking, like, because...
See, the thing is, though, it wouldn't be too far off the mark.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, maybe we did watch Fern Gully.
Hey,
I mean,
you
we
probably
were
just
12
slept.
Like
That's true,
legitimately,
that's also
legitimately, also like Pavlov to like that movie because it's like, hey, get the chill and relax. Also, it's a good movie.
Between that and Captain Planet, that like sparked my
Yeah.
my little environmentalist.
Yeah.
Did anyone else
Hello.
get Austin Powers in their French class? That's what I had.
Wait,
My
really?
teachers that, yeah. So we convinced Mr. Torelli. He's retired already. We convinced our French
Mr.
teacher.
Bleep that.
You're a French teacher with an Italian last
Yeah,
name.
we convinced our French teacher that Austin Powers had a French character, so therefore it should be allowed to be in French, and we watched it in French class. None of them were actually French. We just tricked him into thinking there were French people in the movie. We also got to watch 10 Things I Hate About You twice, because at one point Joseph Gordon-Levitt teaches French to Larissa Oleynik at one point. So we got to watch it in French class. But yeah, Ferngully, I always liked that. I didn't watch it in any of my classes, but...
I watched it on
Wow.
HBO. I don't think I saw it.
I guess
Have you never seen it until now?
No, I had seen it before, but you know the sad part is it kind of got buried because of the other movie that Robin Williams did a voice for this year.
Aladdin.
So
Yeah.
yeah, In terms of like voice acting, I guess it was better than his live action acting in this year because he did toys.
I think it's a good choice to have as number 2.
I remember it being real preachy. I don't really remember anything else about it.
Yeah,
Was it a musical? I can't remember.
That's
Where there were like
the other
3
thing
songs.
I don't remember.
Anyway, our number 1 film, which I think we all at least agree is a pretty good film, is My Cousin Vinny, which 2 of us, I think you had on your list.
It was on the list.
And then I had it on the list.
It was on A list.
It was on A list.
It was his number 3, my number 4, but it equals 5 points. So I figured it's on 2 of our lists.
Clearly.
So we all had our number 1 films on
Which
there,
is funny
so-
that you just said that you would have put Distinguished
I do like
Gentleman on there.
I just
And My Cousin Vinny is directed by the same guy.
Jonathan Lind.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we didn't really talk about it a lot.
Which goes to
when
show
it
he's
came out,
a great comedic director.
but it is cool that we have Joe Pesci in our number 1 film 2 of the 3 years. So apparently we're Joe Pesci fans.
What was the other one?
Goodfellas
Goodfellas.
All right.
in 1990. Yeah, was he in Terminator 2?
Uh,
Imagine Joe Pesci.
don't worry, it's not going to
in-
happen in a few years when Gone Fishing
That's
comes
the
out.
teeth.
This is pretty much it for
This
Joe
is
Pesci.
it for him.
So, but he's got an incredible performance from Marissa Tomei. I think she
Won the
deserves the
Oscar.
Oscar. I know they all
There's a conspiracy theory
kind
about
of
that.
laughed about that. Yeah, they say that Jack Palance almost read.
I forget who.
I forget who the other person up for something was.
But they said he pulled like a Faye Dunaway.
Yeah, from
Read the
La La
Read the
Land.
wrong there.
I don't think that's a real conspiracy theory. I think she deserves the Oscar. The big scene where Joe Pesci pulls out her as the wild card to prove that he knows exactly what kind of vehicle it was, and she talks about the tires and everything. You guys have seen it, right?
It's on there.
Oh god!
I've seen.
I'm just here
I've
to
seen
skew
chunks.
the data.
Have you not even seen it and you put it on your list? My god!
Oh no! What?
This
Oh,
is
wow.
Let's start over.
Oh wow!
So,
Wow!
Recount the votes.
I guess Distinguished Gentlemen's our number 1.
Anyway,
No.
continue with My Cousin.
Well, somehow my number 4 film became our number 1 film.
Now, did we highlight how good Fred Gwynn is in the movie?
Oh, Fred Gwynne's amazing.
Because he's normally associated with Herman Munster before this,
You know.
but then after this, this was like his
Yeah,
biggest.
he was the judge, right?
Yeah, he was the judge.
Yeah. Good, you know something.
No pardon.
He's like, I read the credits.
Yeah.
We gotta
Oh
watch
wait,
it.
Oh.
that's
Should
weird.
watch it after this.
I think that's,
Well, that's
yeah,
weird because like
the
I
plan.
remember his voice in the movie, and now it's like,
You-
oh yeah, no, okay, now I hear the Herman Munster.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't seen the movie from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But I've seen like good chunks of the beginning, good chunks of the middle, and good chunks of the end. So like I know, I've sewn it together in my head. But
In any just universe, he would have broken out from this because he was laboring under the the Herman Munster moniker for years and years
Yeah.
and years.
You also don't have such a great film without the co-star from Distinguished Gentleman, Lane Smith, who was
Who plays the villain, quote unquote,
right.
but he's
the prosecutor against Joe Pesci, and it doesn't work if he doesn't play off of him because he's got that "I'm just a Southern country lawyer" vibe about him. But
Right.
he keeps running into Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei throughout the town, and he's like a little curious about what's going on there, why they're even here.
But he's very cooperative throughout the whole movie, so you can't really dislike him.
Yeah, because he doesn't like putting people away that don't deserve it.
No, he's
But
just doing
he
his job.
legitimately thought that Ralph Macchio and his friend had done the crime.
Ralph Macchio, who you worked
So-
with.
Yeah. Lost Cat Corona, if anyone's seen that film on Amazon. So yeah, Ralph Macchio also worked really well. This is probably my favorite thing that he did after the Karate Kid movies. Because I don't think he did a lot, but My Cousin Vinny.
Hey,
What a
Great
great film.
courtroom comedy.
What a great number 1 choice.
what a great film.
Jonathan Lind does another great courtroom comedy later on with Trial and Error.
Oh yeah, yeah. Some of the other films, I'm trying to think what else we had on our lists. I mean, we talked about Batman Returns.
The Player was on my
3.
list. I don't know if that was on anybody else's list.
No, that's the thing. We had 17 separate films. So I already talked about the 3 that we covered. I'm trying to think. I talked about I had The Cutting Edge in there. Anything else you had? We had 3 of your films.
We had, I don't know, I liked...
If you even saw
Let's
it.
see if
I
he
had
actually
put-
watched any of them.
No, I had put El Mariachi on, which I watched years ago, but I liked
Okay.
more of the story behind the story,
Oh.
that was the whole...
Yeah, because I actually like
Right.
Desperado better than I like El Mariachi.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else you had.
I had it all, baby.
Anyway, why don't we move on to Jeff's poster boy.
Moving on.
So
let's see how bad I did.
yeah, Jeff,
You know how we did compared to other years?
he did pretty well in the beginning of the year, but then towards the end he kind of petered off just because I think he was getting a little tired of the games and stuff. I think we're making it both a little too hard and
we're also giving him two posters.
Switch things up.
Well, here's the other thing. You know, part of this whole gag started because I just don't watch that many movies. So, like, you could show me a poster and be like, I have no idea what this is about.
Right.
Like, even if it's just a very blatant title.
Right.
Like, I could tell you that. But then we started blurring things and making it even more difficult. And I'm, like,
Right.
trying to guess everything.
I had too much fun making, like, Steve Martin
And-
look like he's a zombie. And
Right, but I'm like, and, you know, it works, but it's definitely, like, way more challenging than it would.
I know.
We're upping the intensity every as the year goes on.
I know. I'm trying to make it so that you can come up with a film on your own. But a lot of the films, like even take Leap of Faith, it's just Steve Martin, most of the poster in the foreground, and then a little tint off to the side. What are you going to come up with?
But that's
Like-
right. That's the
that's
thing.
not
I mean,
even
like,
the main
I
poster,
don't
by the
even
way.
think
Right.
you would need to like blur out the face or anything. Like, if you just blur out the title and I just try to guess based on who's in, like, I would genuinely. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Maybe we'll take it back to the basics. The other thing I'm worried
Yes.
about as we go on, you're going to start recognizing films. Like
You'll definitely start recognizing
Oh
something.
yeah. Well,
in
that's the
91,
other
you had
thing.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead,
You got that right off the bat.
Yeah.
but you knew the film.
Right. And
So-
that's why, you know, like I said, as we go on and as I start recognizing more stuff, that's why you keep taking.
Never would have thought
Right.
that was an
Taking
iconic
away
poster,
clues.
but it is.
Yeah. Like we did Aladdin, and it's going to be obvious if it's hands holding a lamp,
Right.
you know?
So sometimes we got to get alternate posters for some of this stuff.
Right.
The European release posters.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's stuff like the one comedy with the baby making. What was that term?
Frozen Assets.
Frozen Assets. Like you don't know who those two actors are.
Right.
Because they disappeared after 92.
Yeah, there'd be so many times where you'd blur out an actor's face and then you'd unblur it. I'm like, I
Doesn't
still
matter.
have no idea who that is.
So a
Yeah.
couple of times you got points based on like you had someone's hair, like Matthew Broderick out on a limb. You guessed was like interesting, and you're like based on the hair, that is kind of the haircut they had in '92. So you
Yeah.
got bonus
I
points
think it was
from that.
Pauly Shore when we did Encino Man. That
Yeah.
was one of the- yeah.
He's actually in that, so you
Yeah.
probably thought it was him. Though it was funny that one specifically, it's supposed to be Brendan Fraser, and it's going along the line, and of like that what do they call
Evolution
it? The
chart.
evolution chart.
Yeah.
And so you thought it was Pauly Shore, which works technically
Because he's in
because
it.
he's in the movie. So you kind of got points off of that. I gave you like half points for that one.
Are you going to explain to the audience what the scoring system is, or?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Essentially, it was like 1 point if you can guess the plot. It was 3 points if you can guess a better plot. 5 points if you guess the
That's a lot
correct
of time.
title, which is always very difficult. Like Trespass. We fed you
There's a lot of
without
people's
really
names.
trying out
so-
on a limb because he's hanging out on a limb. So that's pretty obvious. So I give you like half points if we hint at it, like Frozen Assets. We got you to say it by saying other things. And you use context clues. So if you come up with a better title, I give you 7 points though. So, which didn't happen a lot this year, unfortunately. You did a lot better in 91 with that. Unfortunately, Jimmy, you didn't guess as much as we thought you would.
There was a couple
No,
of
this
times.
year I think I.
You only got like 10 points.
Jimmy kept trying to
some-
steal
some-
it.
Again, more in the beginning.
Yeah,
of the
some
year.
some of the
Steal that out
posters,
from
some of
under
the
me.
posters stumped me, and I was like, I didn't know what to like roll with, and I was like, I didn't.
Which
even,
is
like,
fine. It is just...
I had a hard time like figuring out like how to like try to throw you off, and then also figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Though you did figure out a couple right off the bat. I forget exactly which ones. Cause I did
There's a
this
couple
in-
actors you figured out right off the bat. on the
Yeah.
show.
yeah.
Yeah. Or he
Wait,
knew
do
the
you
film.
even give me points for this shit?
I did. Last year you got like 30 points or something.
Oh, okay.
He got like 60. Either way, you actually got more points than last year. I'm giving you 85 points.
But also, he looked at more posters this year.
That's true. That might have helped.
Yeah, because you guys doubled it. Did we
Yeah.
double it the whole year?
It
or-
ended up
No,
being
it's
the first
more towards
2
the tail
or
end, I think.
3. There weren't a lot of movies, so it's easier in the beginning of the year to only have 1. But it was fun to have 2. And even then, there was I think we stumped you by using unlawful entry as a poster boy, just as a lark. But you knew that immediately, so that actually padded your points. But,
There you go.
you know, it was just kind of fun.
For you guys.
It's always fun for us, yeah. So, you did very well. But I'm not as hard as it. I said last year was like 70 or 60 or something out of 100 or 210. I'm not really saying that. You got 85 points out of what you could get. So you're getting better progressively every year.
There you go.
So.
Welcome to Interjection, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah, literally,
Yeah.
I came up with that number about a minute ago. Anyway, so
What's he
Pull
holding?
the score out of the couch cushion.
There's literally nothing
there's
on
nothing
these
on
cards,
these
by the
cards,
way.
yeah.
There's
So-
nothing.
So a segment we did last year was we looked at the Oscars specifically because we kind of hold that to the highest standard of awards, of course. It's the one that Hollywood does. So we split up between us. I had each of us choose one category. I handed you the category, so you're supposed to think right now about who you would choose. And then I say who actually won. We're going to start off, though, with Jimmy, and he does best screenplay. So if you can think of the movies you liked this year, who would you give best screenplay? And obviously, we're not worried about like adapted or original.
Sure.
You know my answer. It's gonna be.
Well, go ahead.
No. We'll switch it up. Like,
No,
'cause it'll
it's
be
fine.
too easy.
He's gonna
too
bring it up
easy. Like,
again.
It's not a bad adaptation.
yeah, no, it really isn't.
So is that what you want to go with? Last of the Mohicans for screenplay?
Let me just review the list in my head real quick.
Damn, I know one.
Because
Gonna...
like Alien 3 was on there, and then that was
Did that really have a script though?
no, that was no. It was like I enjoyed that movie because I also enjoy that there's two versions,
Right,
and then
yeah.
also like the backstory behind it.
There's
So, like,
constant
when I'm-
permutations during the
so whenever I
production.
watch it, I'm just like it's like I don't care. Like
Two different movies,
This
basically.
is a good hot piece of garbage.
Just
No,
gonna
I like the movie too.
Oh no, I like it. Like for as much like crap that came like that went into it and out of it, and just again two different versions.
Yeah.
I love it. I guess I will stick with Last of the Mohicans because like.
It is an impeccable
So-
adaptation.
But-
It was not nominated, but the winners were The Crying Game for original screenplay and Howard's End for adapted, which
Okay.
is a typical choice. You usually had one of those stuffy British affairs.
Prestigious.
So, and Crying Game was one of the biggest surprises of the year. So
That's
but
because
yeah.
it has that twist midway through. I'm guessing is why.
probably it just wrote a lot of the coattails of that. So,
Although that's more for casting than I would think than the
I mean,
screenplay.
Stephen Ray is nominated and Jay Davidson was nominated. So of
Exactly.
course,
See,
they're the
that's
two
what good
leads.
the performance.
Right.
Is why.
So, but yeah, won an Oscar for screenplay. Anyway, good choice. Yeah, I think Last of the Mohicans is better than these. The other nominees for
Honestly.
adapted were Howard's End, obviously won. Enchanted April, which is sort of a forgotten gem too.
Right.
The Player, A River
That
Runs
was the
Through.
one I was gonna say.
That's what you would say for screenplay.
If I had to choose, I would have
Okay.
said the player.
A River Runs Through It was nominated, and Scent of a Woman, which won Best Actor.
That's right.
So that was the winner for Al Pacino in 1992.
'Cause he's
finally
nominated
won his
twice.
Oscar. Yeah, he was nominated for supporting actor for Glengarry Glen Ross,
Right.
but also then won for Scent of a Woman.
Which
So your other nominees for Best Actor were Robert Downey Jr. for Chaplin, Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven, Stephen Ray for The Crying Game, and then Denzel Washington for Malcolm X.
see, that was a tough category too.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think who I would have taken out of there
yeah.
to
But
put in Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon's your choice
Jack Lemmon's my choice, man.
for.
It's probably my favorite performance ever
Wow.
because it's one thing to read on paper that he's supposed to be a good salesman, but he's on hard times. There's a part where he's on the phone trying to. He makes two separate phone calls. One to his daughter who's in the hospital trying to get an update on her. He has one tone on the phone where he's very bereaved and everything. Then he has to make a call to a client, and then he puts on his client voice. It's amazing the 180 he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should see that.
It's such an atypical performance for him.
Yeah. Great later career.
Yeah. And it's not easy to do that mammoth dialogue sometimes. It feels unnatural with certain people. It can sound a little stilted,
Yeah.
but
So yeah, that's a good choice for Best Actor. I'm going to go over to you, Jeff, for Best Actress. So here are the 5 nominees, just to jog your memory of who was in anything. Obviously, you can make something up that you never even
we
saw.
know who won.
Because we know you do that now. I don't care.
I don't know.
I don't really care. So the winner
Acting.
was Emma Thompson for Howard's End, apparently. So good thing I looked this up because I did not remember that.
I knew about Marissa Tomei for supporting.
The other, Marissa Tomei won for My Cousin Vinny, and Gene Hackman won for Unforgiven. So those are your supporting actors.
Perfect.
The other 4 nominees for Best Actress were Catherine Deneuve for Indochine, Mary McDonnell for Passion Fish, Michelle Pfeiffer for Love Field, and Susan Sarandon for Lorenzo's Oil.
Did we see any of those?
I've seen Indochine.
I've not heard of any of those.
Love Field was a movie by Jonathan Kaplan. I remember we talked about it a little bit when she came
But
up.
I'm sure they were fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Catherine Deneuve is good in Indochine.
I want to see Lorenzo's Oil.
I saw that in French class too.
Best actress?
Batman?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that what you want to do?
Wait.
You're picking
Your
Your
best
Best
actress.
Actress.
Oh. I thought you just read
give
them
me
off.
These are the
but
actual
who would you
nominees
pick?
and winners.
Who would you
could
pick?
pick
Oh,
someone
who would
that's
I
in this
pick?
list.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
You really do not know how this
I'm
game
literally...
works.
This is not poster boy Jeff.
I'm trying
He
to
doesn't
catch up.
understand the
No, I looked at
assignments.
this- Oh my god. What was that thing that Winona Ryder was in?
Dracula.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the
Her for
ticket.
Oh, yeah?
Did
Dracula.
she do another movie? No, that's next year.
She did Mermaids the year before.
Age of Innocence is 93.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dracula.
Yeah.
So Winona Ryder for Dracula.
Okay.
All right. That's not a bad choice.
I always thought she was good, so
Honestly, seeing it this time, I liked her a lot better. So
I can see why people still have problems with Keanu, but not her.
yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty good choice. I have Best Director. So here are the 5 nominees for that. Clint Eastwood won for Unforgiven. That was his first Oscar. And it was a big deal because then it led him into like this weird Oscar phase where everything he did, he was nominated for.
And he
Winning again for $1 Million
kept
Baby.
boxing out Scorsese.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's great. I think Unforgiven is probably the one he deserved it the most for. But, you know,
Debatable.
I don't know. Of his whole career,
Of his whole career, he's directed a lot of movies.
I know. I like
Perfect
a lot
World
of his
might be up there
westerns.
too.
I like, he did Pale Rider. Did he direct Pale Rider?
Maybe.
Yeah, it might not have
Or
been
even
him.
Outlaw Josie Wales. It would be.
He might have. I forget which westerns he directed, but I probably would pick one of those. Anyway, the other 4 nominees were Neil Jordan, who won the Oscar for the writing of The Crying Game, but was also nominated for directing here. James Ivory for Howard's End. Robert Altman for The Player.
Cool.
Martin Brest for Scent of a Woman, which is an outlier because Martin Brest, I believe, is known very well.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Is he the one that did? Yeah.
Gigli.
His career ended in 2003 because he made Gigli. He's still alive. He's around. He's only he's 71, but his career died 20 years ago because of this.
Because of that.
He's the fall guy for this.
He made a really good movie before that.
Yeah.
Meet Joe Black.
Yeah. Meet Joe Black's fine.
I like Meet Joe Black.
It's just a shame because Scent of a Woman is the direction's good.
Yeah.
I like him fine. Though I don't know if this is controversial compared to Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, because I think he, like we said, has done better films. But I'd probably pick Rob Reiner for A Few Good Men.
That's a good choice.
So it's the least likely for him to do because he always does sort of heartwarming things. But A Few Good Men sort of exemplifies the '90s dramas for me, where it's like he gets this tone that there's a seriousness, but it's all sort of hopeful in the end, even if there's some dark underbelly that has caused
You know what?
the drama.
I haven't seen the play, so I can't say. But he opens it up, so I don't know how much of that. There's certain scenes that take place outdoors that I don't know if they
Go to Guantanamo.
Well, yeah, I was gonna
So-
say when they first introduced the Tom Cruise character, he's playing baseball, right?
Right.
I don't know how they would portray that on stage. Maybe they do.
Right.
But
I don't even know if he has
opens
a
it
baseball
up.
bat in that.
It doesn't feel stagey or theatrical when you watch the movie.
No.
In fact, I didn't know until years later that it was based on a stage play.
Exactly.
So
That's
by
why.
that point, I think he does a really good job of doing that.
That's why I think Rob Reiner deserves some credit for that film. Like, if you're putting something like, Martin Brest for Scent of a Woman, you can have him in there. I don't know if he won anything for, the Golden Globes or whatnot, but, I think this is, here we go. For Best Picture, he was nominated for Director for the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
So he actually got a little bit of credit. But I don't think Clint Eastwood's a bad choice, though. Now, at this point, we usually agree we don't have to, what would your choice be for Best Picture? I would assume it would be our number ones, but you can choose a different thing. The 5 that were nominated for the actual Oscars were Unforgiven wins, The Crying Game, A Few Good Men, Howard's End, and Scent of a Woman. So.
Oh, I don't know why Unforgiven wasn't on my list. Jesus.
I know.
I completely forgot. That is unforgivable.
I was gonna say I can't forgive you for that.
Yeah, that is.
Based purely on reputation.
Oh wow! Can I sub that in on my list? Just take something off.
Well, unless it's number one. I'm pulling Twizzlers out.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna stick to my guns on Last of the Mohicans.
That would be your best picture.
Yeah, could stick to my
That's
guns.
fine.
I'm looking up the list again.
Of your list.
No. The list of things that came out in '92.
Fern Gully is best picture.
No, honestly.
I'm gonna be.
No,
I was gonna say I was gonna put a controversial one in there just to spice it up.
I have no idea.
Bad Lieutenant.
The one we didn't talk about on your list. Yeah.
Bad Lieutenant.
Wow.
Which I was hoping when you were gonna say best director and you said it was gonna be a hot take, I thought you were gonna say Abel Ferrara.
It's a good choice. I never saw it though, so I can't really say. That's the thing.
Harvey Keitel would have been like another one I would have said should have gotten nominated for Best Actor.
That's the thing. I can't really tell about the player. I might like the player more for director and picture.
Right.
So.
Under Siege, right? You want to go with Under Siege?
I'd probably.
I was gonna go with Cool World.
That was my lowest of all. Actually, there was the other Brad Pitt film that we almost covered.
Johnny Suede.
Johnny Suede is my least.
Which he
film.
did a poster boy for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit! Beethoven came out that year.
Yes.
Probably.
Is that your choice?
No.
See, I could have seen
My Cousin Vinny.
You're going with My Cousin Vinny?
Go with
a
My
movie
Cousin
he hasn't
Vinny.
seen.
I almost went with My Cousin Vinny. I should have held off. We could have had that as best picture. What are you saying?
I was gonna say Few Good Men seems like it would have been like the front runner, and that Under Siege or Unforgiven just came in.
Yeah. Under Forgiven.
Yeah.
Can
So I guess
I
guess A Few Good Men actually wins then. I'm fine with that. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are our picks for best of the year. We have A Few Good Men winning the Oscar, but we have My Cousin Vinny as our number one film, which we all loved and saw for sure. So, were there any trends that you saw?
There were actually. We even talked about it on the podcast because of the anniversary. There was 3 Columbus movies. One of them wasn't theatrical, but there was 2 of them, and they were both turgid melodramas, which kind of sanitized the image of Columbus and made him the primary explorer for America.
Yeah.
Which, nowadays,
really?
a little controversial. One directed by Ridley Scott. Oh,
Yeah.
You remember we talked about this?
Yes.
He mutes us when you go on.
Yeah, I know he does.
Gets his little nap in before Poster Boy.
I was hoping maybe that one at least would be tolerable, but not even with Gerard Depardieu in the main role was any good. There's a lot of erotic thrillers that came out this year. Tawdry erotic thrillers. One of which is at least bearable because of the director, which is Basic Instinct.
Oh, sure.
Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
But then we had Whispers in the Dark, which made Alan Alda into a villain.
Yeah.
And then Final Analysis with Richard Gere. So this is kind of like tangentially related to the podcast, but Spirit Christmas came out, the precursor to South Park, and Frog Baseball premiered this year, which was the precursor to Beavis and Butthead.
Oh.
Which would spawn 2 big animated series that would eventually go on to have their own big screen adaptations.
Films, which we will probably talk about.
Yeah.
I've never seen either.
Really?
Nor have I.
Yeah, so maybe they would be good to cover when we get there.
Con artists were big in the movies this year.
Yeah, Distinguished Gentlemen.
Distinguished Gentlemen, Leap of Faith, which
Leap
happened
of
to come
Faith.
out the same month. And Mo Money.
Yeah.
So those were the trends I noticed this year.
Cool. Yeah, did you learn anything? Did you feel like you saw a lot of actors you liked pop up a lot, or?
I mean, I learned that I really need to, once again, watch more of these things.
Watch Meyer.
Yeah, I never got around to seeing Malcolm X, and I really wanted to. How do you feel about this year, Jimmy?
Wait, like the year that we're covering, or like this?
1982.
Okay, yeah, I thought you meant like
The year
like
is 1992.
1992.
It was an alright year. Like,
Oh my god.
But like
fine.
movies wise, like
It was
I don't.
5.
I was 5.
I got some Pogs. Actually, Pogs are 2 more
No,
years
no,
old.
Pod's been coming. Like no, I mean
94.
like 95. Like
You know what?
that was fine. For movies, like I don't know, there was a few dry months.
Actually,
Wasn't it?
June was kind of slight.
Yeah.
Because it just had Batman Returns and like one other big blockbuster, and we barely found something to cover.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's what like stuck out in my mind, was, like probably just June.
yeah, it was kind of hard to figure
Yeah.
out that month at least, but you know,
But,
A lot of auteur-driven movies
yeah,
because they gave obviously Tim Burton gets carte
Yeah.
blanche to do whatever he wants with a Batman sequel and
mm-hmm.
makes it too dark even for most families.
This is
Yeah.
the year Reservoir
Well,
Dogs
also
comes
like
out.
not a
Reservoir
whole lot
Dogs
of
comes
like,
out.
animated features either. So like that's why I threw Porco Rosso on.
Part of,
Why?
part of the reason you don't like the Dracula movie
Well,
is
other
because
than-
it's basically Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, but they say Bram Stoker's. So it's very auteur-driven.
Yeah.
So this was almost... It almost felt like New Hollywood in a way.
Yeah.
Was this year, even though it had died.
Which is funny because Robert
Already.
Altman lambasted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering how it'll be in a year or so because we're getting a lot of independent movies coming up soon, like Reservoir Dogs, but you're gonna have Clerks.
Clerks
in 2
is
years.
coming out. Linklater
Yeah,
was coming up.
not Waking Life.
Slacker.
Slack. Cool. Well, 92 I think went pretty well. I'm very excited about 93. 3 of my favorite films of all time are in this year. So I'm very excited to talk about those, even though they're not really hidden gems. So this will be fun next year when we come around and I just have my nostalgia things.
Did they all spawn
Sequel.
sequels? I know 2 of them did.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, one was a historical film. That's my dad movie.
Gods and Generals.
Tombstone. It's your
Mm.
Tombstone. Anyway, we have a movie already picked out for next January. It's called Matinee. I think we're gonna go with. I think I just decided that for us.
It was between that and Alive.
Yeah. How do you feel, Jeff? Do you want to do a live or matinee?
I
Based on the title
He doesn't
alone,
know either.
dealer's choice.
sounds like matinee. So we're gonna talk about John Goodman a little bit. So
And Joe Dante.
yeah. So thank you again for watching us for 3 straight years. We're already up to 40 episodes next month. So
Holy Christmas!
I'm just happy that we lasted this long. So it's been a lot of fun to do this. I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a good holiday. Actually, it's the 30th already, so I hope you had a good holiday. Have a good New Year.
Jimmy will have a drink on you.
I never know how to end this.
Yeah.
And
Thanks again.
wow.